Okay, one thing about personal training that you have to understand is there is a difference between the anatomy of a woman's arm and the anatomy of a men's arm. If I hold my palm forward this way and I draw a line straight down my arm, it intersects my pinky. So because of the shape of my arm, when I pull my arms up, they're more comfortable inward toward my chest than outward toward my shoulders. Whereas with a woman, when her palms are facing forward, if I draw a straight line down her arm, it misses her pinky by 2 or 3 inches, and when she pulls her hands up, they're more comfortable outside to the outside of her shoulders rather than inside toward her chest. So she's adding friction when she works this way, whereas it's adding ease with men, and she's adding comfort when she works this way, and for a man to work that way, it's more uncomfortable. And that is the difference in an easy curl bar. When a woman uses an easy curl bar, if she puts herself in the Y position where it's shaped like a Y, her hands are at the outside. When she pulls it up, her hands are more comfortable in that Y position. Whereas for a male, doing the same movement, if I hold it in the M shape or on the inside, when I come up, my elbows are most comfortable. Okay, we're going to discuss some strategies when training biceps. So first of all, you have to understand there's 3 important ranges of motion when working in your biceps. There's the bottom part here, which is people are very strong at. And there's also the top part that goes from here to here, and people are equally as strong. And then there's this little tiny half-inch spot in the middle called a sticking point. So if you're going to do a strict curl like this, you can only do it with what you can move through the sticking point. So no matter how strong you are down here, or no matter how strong you are up here, you can only curl as much weight as you can pull through that sticking point. And so it's fundamental to understanding how you should train your biceps, to understand that you're very strong on the bottom, you're weak in that little half-inch, and you're very strong on the top. So now there's 3 primary movements to consider when training biceps. There's a compound motion, which you use 2 joints. You use the elbow and the shoulder, and you use both of them together. And the reason you do compound motions is because you can do them heavier, and you're using momentum to get through the sticking point. So you can actually work where you're strongest at the bottom and work where you're strongest at the top, and allow the bar to coast through the sticking point. But unfortunately, what a lot of people will do when they're doing that is they pull it up to that sticking point where it gets hard, and they start to lean backwards. And then what they're doing is they're moving it through the sticking point by leaning backwards. If I curl up to here and I get stuck, and I lean backwards, you see it moves to that sticking point and I'm strong again. Many people do that, but it puts your lower back at high risk for injury. You can actually blow out a disc doing that. So what you should do instead is lean toward it to get to the sticking point. So in other words, if I pull this up to the point where it stops, and I just bend my knees and stick my butt back, you can see I lean forward to the sticking point rather than back, and I don't endanger my back. So I pull it up to this point where I want to lean backwards, and I stick my butt backwards and pull it through the sticking point. So I pull, whoo, pull, whoo, pull, whoo. And those are cheap curls. I can do the same motion with dumbbells. If I'm going to swing that dumbbell through that range of motion and use 2 joints, my elbows and my shoulders, I can swing them back to get a little momentum, have them come up, hit that sticking point instead of leaning back, lean forward, bend my knees and stick my butt out. And swing, bend forward, stick my butt out. And this is the proper way to do a cheat curl. A lot of people get upset at the idea of doing a cheat curl, but a cheat curl actually lets you use the maximum amount of weight you need to train at the bottom of that motion and the maximum amount of weight you can use to train through the top of that motion, and you're not limited by your sticking point. The next motion is an isolation or a strict curl. And on a strict curl, merely your elbows just stay at your side so that you're only using 1 joint. You're isolating the shoulder joint, and you're just using the elbow joint to do the curl. You notice on the cheat curl, it came up in front of my face, way up here. The dumbbells came almost over my shoulders, whereas the strict curl, it just comes up to the top of my chest in this region here. So a strict curl I'm using what I can pull through the sticking point, which is a lighter weight, so I'm very powerful from here. I force it to the sticking point and I pull it up to there. And I'm very powerful and I force it to the sticking point and I come up there. With dumbbells, I don't use momentum on the bottom, but I pull it up and I force it to that sticking point and I bring it up. I pull it up, force it to that sticking point and bring it up, and I don't move my elbows from my side in order to get through that sticking point or to use momentum. Now the last one is a finishing exercise or a super strict motion, and what that is continuous tension. So for the barbell, if I curl it and keep it close to my body, on a regular strict curl it comes out. Okay? What I'll do is I'll keep it close to my body and let my elbows go backwards and pull it all the way up to the top and back down. I pull my elbows backwards and come up, and you can see I'm in full contraction at the top, and as I lower it down, I don't straighten my arms, I stop just short of straightening my arms to keep full contraction the entire time of the motion. And that's a strict movement. So the three movements that you use to work biceps, whether you do it with dumbbells or barbells, would be your, let me show you the strict dumbbell movement, is I put them slightly out in front of me here, pull them along the front of my body and pull my elbows back and pull the dumbbells like I'm pulling them into my armpit. And pull back and pull back, and that's continuous tension or a strict movement. So when you're working biceps, your movements will involve either a compound motion or a cheat motion, an isolation motion, which you can go heavy with, an isolation motion, which you're going to pull what you can pull through your sticking point, and a finishing motion that's continuous tension meant to give you that really big, deep pump you're looking for that's going to expand your biceps. So now, as far as curls go, hand positions. There's three primary hand positions that you use during biceps. One is, obviously, I can pull this up and keep my palms upward. I can pull this up and keep it hammered in a hammered position. The advantage of the hammered position, it tends to work the head of your biceps a little more. Or I can do a combination of both by holding it toward the rear of the dumbbell, is as I bring it up, twist it, and supinate it and turn it out, and finish with it turned all the way out, and I bring it back down, turning it back the other way, a supinating bicep. And a supinating bicep is really meant to design the peak of your bicep in that whole motion. So, back to the easy curl bar. We already discussed for women this is the easier position, but for a man, this is the easier position on the easy curl bar in the M position, whereas a woman will be more comfortable in the Y position. Now you have biceps. The word seps means head. You have one muscle called a bicep, but you have two heads, and that's why it's called biceps, two heads. And you have an inside head and an outside head. Typically, if your hands are moving on the inward position like this, you're working the outside head more. And that outside head is what's going to give you that peak in the back, that little extra bump in the back when you separate your biceps. Now the inside head is you're going to be working when you do your slightly wider grip. And for a woman it's going to be slightly wider, and for a man it's going to be probably straight up, but you're going to pull it up into a wider grip. And that wider grip is going to work the inside head. So that makes sense that I'm pulling on the inside when my hand comes up this way, and I'm pulling on the outside head when my hand comes up that way. So those are the basic strategies. Okay, now another really cool thing. We explained that biceps is two heads. You have a rear head here, and you have a head in the front here. Your two heads, your biceps. One muscle, two heads. If you twist your fist in and pull in like I'm trying to pull something toward me, you can learn after doing it for a while to control the two heads individually. In other words, you can get this split going in your bicep. And the beauty of that split is if you activate it and pull up, it actually separates slightly and you have that rear peak that bodybuilders thrive and define themselves by when they're on stage. So practice that motion of splitting your biceps until you get control over it. And when you get control over it, just bring it up and flex your bicep and you'll set the two peaks apart.